Greetings and welcome to Sports 101, the show that discusses sport beyond the X's and O's. Here we like to expand our conversation to include the history of the game in the past, present, as well as in the making. We also look at the game from a people, places, and cultural perspective. I'm your host, Jamar Harp. Be sure to follow me on social media at Coach_Harp412 on Twitter and Jamar Harp on Facebook. Please ensure you get social with Sports 101 and a litany of other shows by SportsZone Chicago by following SportsZone Chicago on social media. You can follow SportsZone Chicago on Twitter at SportsZone CHI, Facebook at SportsZone Chicago, and Instagram at SportsZone Chicago. Remember, SportsZone Chicago is the world's only Black-owned sports talk app. You can watch the My Show, our flagship show, Sean and Maya in the Morning, or countless other shows by following us on YouTube and subscribing to the channel. Search SportsZone Chicago. After you subscribe to YouTube, we need everyone to download the SportsZone Chicago app. The SportsZone Chicago app can be found in the iTunes, Google Play, and Amazon stores. Now I would like to talk to you about this week's episode, which is titled African American Soccer Culture in the United States. So if you look at this picture right here, you'll see some demographics of participation. The people in the background are Footy Mob, I believe, the Atlanta United Black supporters group. And it just shows how Black participation is arising, not only in Major League Soccer, but in United States soccer and throughout the United States soccer pyramid in the recent years. So why is that important? When you think traditionally about soccer fandom in the United States, the focus has squarely been on Anglo or Latino fan cultures. Combined, these fans represent the majority of the soccer pie and have commanded also the majority of the attention of brand marketers looking to leverage their passion of the sport. However, in recent years, we've seen a growing appreciation for the existence and importance of Black and African American and African soccer fans. But just how big and how interested it is audience. According to the report from 2020, 14% of Black fans in the United States are very interested in soccer, while 26% are somewhat interested. This compares favorably to white fans, where only 7% are very interested. Now, before we dive into some of the great content pieces highlighting Black soccer fandom recently, let's start with some of the foundational Black fan demographics. So in the latest GESM soccer fan research study, which was conducted in 2020, one of the key takeaways was that Black and African-American fans are younger and really far much younger than the average soccer fan. So most African-American or African soccer fans are 29 years and younger, while the average age of fans outside of this demographic is 36. In the 16 to 22 demographic, Black fans, they're over the index by 186%, which is considerable margin. A lot of this is due to the immigration and, again, in soccer is a worldwide sport. So in these West African countries where a lot of these immigrants come from, that is the main sport that they play when growing up. Now, with these younger fans, you also expect there to be fewer children under the age of 18 in the household. And this range is also true because Black fans in this index are at 75%. So now we got to look at it on the gender front. We also found that Black female fans are 115%, over the index when compared to other soccer fans. Now, when we look at brands, they want to make waves among this young female market, and they're targeting Black African Americans as well as females because they feel like this market is worth tapping into. The American soccer community right now has long talked about the need to embrace cities and urban areas and get more diversity in the sport. Remember, the soccer ecosystem was generally pay for play in this country, and they want to change that model because it affects the highest level of the pyramid, which is the United States national team. Fortunately, there are a few more grassroots organizations that are coming out to increase the participation of Africans in the diaspora in soccer. So the first one right here is you have FC Harlem, and Starfinder organization, and they work to promote soccer in underserved communities. So here's another picture of FC Harlem's team right here. We just saw their logo. Progress and participation at all levels needs to increase, but that'll help too by us getting more personalities into the game, gaining more support. Remember, it wasn't until Atlanta United joined the MLS that this support started to get more and more attention. Now, we talked about the written success of Atlanta United, but the fans in the city, again, were the cause of this. Now, if we took a spotlight on these fans in this new wave, you'll see soccer innovators. Again, you got people that started the supporter groups such as Footy Mob. We have some of our favorite, athletes coming to these games and just promoting the world's game that, again, from previous shows, I've demonstrated that the African origins of soccer come from Angola, and with the Portuguese slave trade sponsored by the Catholic Church, these individuals were took from Angola to Salvador Bahia and other places in Brazil. So the two exports that they brought to Brazil was capoeira and its African style of soccer, which became known as Jogo Bonito, or the beautiful game, due to the spin that the Brazilians put on it. Now, when we get back to this country, some of the things that helped us were ownership and diversity in American soccer. So just like every other professional sport, we're looking for ownership and diversity within the Major League Soccer and the National Women's Soccer League. You have folks like Kevin Durant, James Harden, Serena Williams, Mark Ingram Jr., Russell Wilson and Sierra, Naomi Osaka, and Ken Griffey Jr., who all have pledged allegiance to Major League Soccer and National Women's Soccer League by either participation or buying a team. We also know LeBron James and his ownership in the English Premier League as well. Now let's talk about these Black-owned brands in soccer fashion. So just like any other sport, soccer has a fashion brand with it too as well. So we have examples such as Breathe Football right here that creates a limited edition Black Lives Matter jerseys and also makes soccer gear for the African-American community. We have Black Arrow right here that also makes clothes and is a lifestyle brand in regards to soccer. There's another brand called Creevale, which is owned by former MLS player Warren Creevale, that also markets to the community. He also has started an after-school program in Chester, Pennsylvania called Design FC that allows the students to use their creativity not only to play soccer, but to design their uniforms as well. So we talked about the soccer culture in Atlanta. I want to show you a quick video on it so you can get more introduced, and then we'll work our way up to our featured guest, Brother Yogi Bar.
Drinking on a little something that you see, smoking on a little something that you see, you know what I'm saying, but I'm blessed, you know what I'm saying?
You're into the soccer thing or not really?
I'm into soccer a little bit, you know, I like the soccer jerseys, you know what I'm saying? Like, what his name, David Beckham, David Beckham, you know what I'm saying? Shout out David Beckham.
What is it about Atlanta that draws black people in? Is it the rich history? Is it the highest population of black folks outside of New York City? Is it the food, the weather, the location? What is it? Whatever it is, Atlanta is unquestionably the blackest city in the United States. And as it stands right now, it's probably the city who wields the single most cultural influence in the country. Football in Atlanta have been a perfect fit for a long time, even without an MLS team. Black Arrow FC is a lifestyle brand focusing on the intersection of soccer and black culture. This weekend, they're taking us on a deep dive into Atlanta and the black soccer culture nobody knew existed.
All right, guys, we are here, MARTA 5 Point Station, where Soccer in the Streets has created this incredible outdoor space. We're gonna catch up with Aaron Dolores and the crew. Gonna have a good time, gonna play a little bit. Hopefully I don't break my ankles. Hopefully I don't tear any hamstrings. This is something I didn't expect to see in this country for years. What brought this together?
We really felt like there was already a lot of black people that were into the sport or intrigued about the sport, but they just needed a space to come together. So much of the culture exists here already. You have the team, you have hip hop, you have clothing, And we just wanted to kind of like put all that stuff in a pot and stir it together and get some black gumbo. It's not specifically about black culture. It's the idea of having a curated space that we can connect in with all cultures. So we just brought together different brands that kind of represent the culture in Atlanta. Soccer is just bubbling in the United States, and it needs these type of platforms to take it to the next level.
That's also about representation. At the end of the day, for us, we bring such a dope stamp on the culture. I mean, it could be soccer, it could be, Venus and Serena with tennis, Tiger with golf. We really have a special stamp on any culture, any sport, any brand, any style.
How has the community changed since Atlanta United touchdown?
It's been transformational. There's so many people that, you'll see it today, that love soccer now, that probably never even knew about the game. People from all backgrounds, people that don't normally meet, will now meet.
When I grew up, I had my backyard. I had the park and like 8 kids that didn't play soccer. If I had this growing up, it would have been absurd. And they're putting these at, I think they're trying to do 10 stations around this city. This is exactly what we need in this country. Imagine having this every day at every single major transit station in this country. This is absurd.
We just wrapped up the Soccer in the Streets 5-on-5 tournament. It didn't break my ankles, didn't get megged, so it's a net win. Now, we're gonna get fresh and head to the Kick Classic party at Atlanta streetwear boutique A Ma Manière to meet up with Aaron Dolores and the rest of the Black Arrow squad.
My man, South Sudan, born and raised, came over to Atlanta in 2006.
As an African kid, soccer was all you had. Soccer helped me really to explore Atlanta. My goal was to really bring everything I'm doing, soccer, fashion, into one category.
Fully invested in the soccer culture. How have you seen it change in Atlanta?
Soccer's like the new skateboard. You go to the hood, you see people wearing jersey, and that was the issue before. A lot of people were not exposed to soccer, and I see the growth coming.
Do you feel like it's connected to you to more black people in Atlanta?
Yeah, definitely, because a lot of black people go to the game.
Neymar dipping and getting signed by Jordan. And Paul is big with Adidas. Ronaldo, like how big he is with Nike. Those dudes, like, they're the face. They're bigger than almost any NFL star or any NBA star. And they really control like a lot, and they have a big influence. That's one of the ways I believe like how like soccer fashion has dipped into like mainstream America.
I feel like we're the next market.
I saw the little advertisement on Facebook, man. I said, you know what? Let me go to this footy mob thing. One thing led to another. They asked me if I wanted the capo. I went online, YouTubed everything. Trying to follow any capo I could find. Like, I don't think any of us realize how many soccer fans are in the city. And I think last year we were deer in headlights. We were just like, is this really happening? Black, white, gay, straight, everybody's just coming to these games, and it's just one big family, and it's so crazy to see that.
I'm very excited. I'm very excited.
He ain't ready.
I can't wait.
Hey, you haven't seen a footy mob tailgate.
We're gonna be there. We're gonna be there.
There's tailgate in the city. That's what we were voted as.
Kind of crazy to imagine that soccer in the U.S. has reached this point. Bringing people into this environment for the first time, and get to open somebody a door and say, like, look how big this is, look how important this is. It's been amazing.
You could tell when you see middle school soccer, when you see junior varsity and varsity soccer, the interest has gone up. Black kids are now interested in being part of the soccer team. A city that exemplifies black people. To be a soccer city, I think is amazing.
Look at it. This is Atlanta. This is Atlanta for soccer. 72,000 people. Footy Mob is down there. Black Elrose here. Every single shade that exists in this world is in this stadium. There's so much diversity, and I've said 100 times, I've never seen anything like this because I've never seen anything like this in this country. I don't believe it. I don't understand it, but we're here. We're in the spaceship, and Atlanta's winning, so everybody's happy.
Welcome back, everyone. Again, I'm your host, Jamar Harp, and this is Sports 101, the show that discusses sport beyond the X's and O's. We like to expand our conversation of game to include history in the past, present, and in the making, and we also look at it from a people, places, and cultural perspective. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, search SportsZone Chicago, but more importantly, download the SportsZone Chicago app. The SportsZone Chicago app can be found in the iTunes, Google Play, and Amazon stores. Moving back into this week's episode right here, we'll move into our featured guest, Brother Yogi Barr. Our featured guest contributes to Black soccer culture in the Richmond, Virginia area where he is from. Yogi Barr launched a podcast called River City 93 in 2019, covering the Richmond Kickers of the United States Soccer League. Yogi and his co-host, Chenier Duran II, are both founding members of the Richmond Kicker supporter group, the Red City Red Army, which again, you can see them in the flag right here. And Mr. Barr also hosts a podcast called Can I Kick It, which tells stories of Africans in the diaspora related to soccer. That's athletes, coaches, as well as owners who have impacted the game. You can follow Mr. Barr on Twitter at CIKIFC and Instagram at Can I Kick It FC. Brother Yogi Barr is also Director of Communications for the Red Army Supporters Group, and he's the former head coach, women's head coach at his high school, Huguenot in Richmond, Virginia. SportsZone Chicago, I'd like to welcome our special invited guest, Brother Yogi Barr.
Hey, what's going on?
Hey, Yogi, how you doing, brother? Thank you for coming out today.
It was a pleasure of mine, man. It's all good. How's everything on your end?
I'm good. Thank you for asking. So before we get started, I want to get your thoughts on that video that we watched on African American soccer culture in Atlanta and Footy Mob. Can you give any thoughts on that?
Yeah. So it's actually very funny that you chose that video because I know a lot of people within that video. Reggie, the older gentleman with the locks, I interviewed him. Yeah, I interviewed him for Can I Kick. I'm very cool with him. Okay. Vera, she was the lady with the. It's funny, she had on a face mask before face masks were even a thing. And I've interviewed him for the podcast. There were two other guys, Grego, Mary Kane, and Tony. They're part of the For the Culture podcast, which is another Black-owned soccer podcast. We worked together over the past couple of years. We're really cool. And, of course, the host of the show, Aaron West, I had the pleasure of meeting him not too long ago down in Charlotte and hanging out with him. And he's a big influencer as well. So, yeah. About the video, man, it's very cool. It's more than just Atlanta, but I call Atlanta the mecca of it. It's kind of like every Black supporter's second favorite team just because of the fact, like, it's kind of like the most diverse team, supporters group out there. And that's one thing that in supporter group culture we're trying to change and get ahead of and push it out there that, you know, these can be diverse and inclusive spaces for all.
Definitely. Now, one thing that I noticed, because I lived in Atlanta a while too when this was getting started, and they were getting traction on Sports 90, The Fan, another group, another talk shows down there on the radio. Well, just going to one of those, like you said, the tailgates. You might have a couple bands and drum lines from Atlanta public schools. Pig picking, electric slide contests. You really think it's like a family reunion for a while. And the one thing that I liked about it was more people, especially when the sponsorships that come in with the Jack Daniels. I don't know if you remember that. But when those sponsorships are coming, it was more than black people that wanted to join footy ball.
No, most definitely. I think the tailgate to me is one of the most unique things about American soccer that's very different than our counterparts in Europe and South America. Because in Europe, everyone's going to the pub. They're getting their beer before the match. In South America, it's more so you're hanging out at someone's house, and then you're hanging on the Lagea, and then, going to the stadium, things of that nature. Here in America, it's tailgating for us. It's definitely down here in the South. Atlanta tailgates, man. Reggie not lying. You're not prepared for them, man. No one is prepared for them because they're on a whole different level. Because it's not only is it like a big tailgate for like a homecoming, but I mean, this as well. You've been to HBCU. It's pretty much like the equivalent of an HBCU homecoming, but just mix it with soccer. And that's every other Saturday.
Yeah.
So literally from like 9 o'clock in the morning to game time, which might not be till 7, you are out there eating barbecue, drinking, playing cornhole, blasting music. Like it takes on a whole life of its own. And even being on the coordinating committee for my supporters group forum a couple of years ago, man, it takes a lot. It takes a lot.
Now, how would you compare that culture, like you said, to the European or Spanish cultures, where they still have a walk up or march to the game, but here in the United States, it's a tailgate, then a march up? Like, which one do you prefer?
I mean, everyone's different. Everyone's style is a little bit different because there's some clubs here that don't do the tailgating. They do the march up to the stadium. I think it all depends on what the culture of your club and your supporter group is. You kind of got to know what works best for your supporter group. For our supporter group, it's tailgating. Like I said, like before we got on the show, our supporter group is kind of small, like 50 people, 60 most. So a lot of the time, what we're doing is we're using tailgating as a recruiting factor. Now, over the last 2 years, we haven't been able to do that because of the pandemic, and things of that nature. So we're really looking to push that as a way of bringing everyone back together, and having that tailgating. But I think it's a unique aspect to any supporters group with that tailgating, because it's just a way, people to congregate, hang out, just to catch up with everyone else. It's the same thing. Like if you replace tailgating with being in England or Germany and going to the pub, it's the same thing, having a drink beforehand, eating something, and then going to the stadium, same exact thing.
Now, one thing I would like to add that's a little historical and related to us, if you look at the march up and kind of related to the second line in regards to, if you look at New Orleans and the Mardi Gras culture, and even when someone dies, there's always a march, then it turns into a lively type celebration. That's kind of culturally ingrained. So like we talked before the show, if we take all these little bit of cultural elements that we have that have been transposed in the baseball, basketball, and football, because you remember at one point in time, we were excluded from those sports as well. Like when we brought in the forward pass, the different dribbling styles, and then hit and run baseball as well as stealing bases, that African culture transcended the game. So it's only going to happen in soccer next.
Yeah. You can kind of say it's already happening now with us kind of imposing our way into the game. Look at how teams are marketing their jerseys versus how they were 10 years ago. They were kind of bland, kind of like, we're not, outside of the major team. Now you have smaller teams making different jerseys, every other week because they want to be part of that culture. Look at MLS, huge credit to my boy Grego down for the culture. He made a template for his own for the culture, for Black History Month. And MLS, they kind of bit off his style, but they started doing number 10 plates for Juneteenth, and that's something that I'm very proud of, and that we're seeing pushed along. Like even my home team here, Richmond Kickers, they started doing Juneteenth jerseys and things like that to commemorate the day. Kind of exploring that culture and things like that. So I would say our culture is prevalent. It's still in the early building phases of it, but it's definitely something that is there.
Definitely. So, Yogi, can you tell our viewing audience what was your initial attraction to soccer? Like, what got you involved into the sport?
So my initial attraction to soccer is a little bit different than everyone else's. So for me, I'm born and raised in Richmond, Virginia. I'm a hometown kid. Went to elementary, middle, high school, university in the area. And when I was in second grade, I was playing soccer. I started out playing soccer. My mom did not let me play football until I got to high school. So I was playing soccer growing up, and our school was right behind where the Richmond Kickers were practicing at. So that's how I kind of got into it. My mom had me playing a bunch of sports, man. I was doing track and field, baseball, lacrosse. I was just trying different things just to, my mom did, wanted me to do something else than just, football. Obviously, I got bigger and it was kind of prevalent. They were kind of just like, all right, son, you can't play center back anymore. We're going to put you on this offensive line and you're going to shove somebody down the field for 20 yards. So that's kind of what happened with that. It was kind of in the early days, too, of like, now I could have been like a midfielder or whatever. But back in those days, they were kind of just like, oh, well, you don't fit the physical traits, so we're not going to play you. Kind of the whole ideology has changed now, which is a good thing. But that's how I got started in it. I didn't really pick it back up until I got to college. I'm a proud alumnus of Virginia State University in Petersburg, Virginia, Hell Trojans. And the guy that was living across from
so cold.
Yeah. And the guy that was living across from me, he was from the Netherlands, black guy. Very strange to me. I never knew black people were in the Netherlands. I just assumed it was all white. But you learn something different every day. And he was an Ajax fan. So if you know Ajax, or those who are not familiar with Ajax, they're famous for the 3 X's and the red flag. And he had that flag hanging up in his room. So I asked him, I was like, yo, what's that? I didn't know what it was. I thought it was like something like Chicago or something. He was like, no, like this is the flag of my club, Ajax AFC. And I was like, who? Like, what is that? Because, growing up in the South of the United States, only sports I know of are football, basketball, and the occasional baseball. I've never, really delved into soccer clubs. And it was for him. His name was Jamar. I still talk to him to this day. He actually moved back to Netherlands after we graduated college. He's actually working for Ajax Youth Club now as a reporter. But, me and him were just talking, and he was like, yo, let's watch some games together. So it started off from there, like Saturday mornings. We would illegally stream Soccer Pass because that's how you watch soccer. So we would have all kind of viruses on our laptop. But man, we were watching, the Italian Derby, La Liga, Premier League. So that really started my path and journey into soccer.
Okay, fantastic. Can you tell us about your experiences now after graduating from Virginia State? Brother Yogi started coaching at Huguenot High School, his alma mater, and he coached the women's team. Can you tell our audience sort of about that, and then kind of move into your style of play, what we were talking about before the game, which I think is revolutionary and needs to be taught?
So the way how I came across the Huguenot head soccer job was I was kind of like, I had the coach a bug. I guess it's kind of funny because we talk about it so much, me and my group of friends. There's other black soccer media about how we kind of all were like, oh, I want to do something in soccer. I want to do media, or I want to coach or whatever. So I tried, my first hand was at coaching. And when I graduated, I used to work at the YMCA, and then I became a teacher. And my old athletic director, he knew I was, interested in coaching and whatnot. I like playing soccer. He hit me up. He was like, "Hey, I'm looking for a girl soccer coach. Like, if you're interested, let me know. I'll hook you up." So he hit me up with a job. This was November 2018. So keep that date in mind because it's about to get crazy. Um, so the girls soccer team, man, I loved it. I never coached the game for the team because the first game I got to coach, we got shut down by COVID. Like we got to play 6 minutes worth of soccer. Mind you, I was training these girls from February to like mid-March. First game got shut down. They were like, "Yeah, we're shutting it down for COVID for the rest of the year." So I never got back to actually go back and coach because the following school year we were virtual, so there weren't no sports. And by that time, I was starting grad school, so I like to say that my coaching record is 0, 0, and 0. But some of the things that we were doing in training, I realized early on that I couldn't coach these girls like soccer because it would take too long. They wouldn't get it. So I had to coach it to them like it was basketball. And that only because they play basketball. A lot of the girls were on the girls' basketball team. So I just had to translate a lot of those skills. So now my tactics and whatnot were not revolutionary because I knew we didn't have the talent to, go out there and compete with the teams that have played travel soccer and, these girls been playing soccer all their life. I knew we couldn't do that. So what we did was we set up in a 5-4-1, very low block. Like we probably wanted to push it up past our own half line. It was just really just to protect our box and just working on defensive principles, what we were really teaching the girls. But like we were talking about earlier, I would try to put players in the positions that they best excelled at. So the young lady, she played point guard. So I would put her at a kind of like midfielder, kind of attacking mid. She would be the further up midfielder.
Like girl that in a sense.
Yeah, kind of like attacking the mid almost.
Okay.
And I had another girl that played power forward. I put her as center defensive mid. The girl that plays center, I put her as center back. Another girl that played shooting guard, put her as striker. And the goalkeeper was the backup center back, just because he had better hands at the moment. And that's kind of how we built our team around. That was kind of like the spine of the team. We just kind of just teach the girls just zonal tactics. Like, hey, this is your lane. This is your zone. You protect this zone. So they wouldn't interfere and overlap to get into other players' zone or whatnot. Because it's very easy for them. Yeah, it's very easy for them to think it's like basketball and kind of want to slag off the defender, not give up too much space because you want to keep them in front of them. What I had to tell the girls was you want to attack the space and it's almost like you have to manipulate and force angles. So what you want to do is attack the player head on and push them to the wing.
How did that strategy work using sort of basketball as an analogy? Did you see it take fold very quickly?
The first 2 weeks it was hard because I had to teach them how to dribble. It was very like bare basics. But I mean, after a while, you kind of we kind of start seeing them catch on to it. Week 3-4 of us drilling them, we kind of started seeing them like, oh snap! I know when to close down space. I know where to be here. I know where to be there. So that was really cool to see.
Now let's talk about your experience with the Richmond Kickers. If anyone doesn't know, there's a professional soccer tier or pyramid in the United States, with the MLS being up top, and then you have the USL, sort of the AAA version, if you want to use baseball as an analogy. So the Richmond Kickers are a USL team. Now there is some interplay. The MLS teams, they play USL teams. Usually they let their backups play, but they do play games against each other. So what was your attraction to the Richmond Kickers?
It's my home team. It's my home team club, man. Like that's what it comes down to. I kind of equate soccer in America to almost like college football. When you think about it, so you think of like MLS as part of like your Power Five. Like these are the conferences that get the big money. They get all the talking spots on ESPN, Fox, all that kind of stuff. USL. And actually USL splits into 3 levels. You had the championship, what the Kickers used to be in. That's kind of like that next tier, like your Cincinnati's, things of that nature. USL League One, which is kind of like, let's say this, like your ODUs, your New Mexico, these kind of smaller teams. The USL League One, which is like amateur, well, not amateur rankish, but they're kind of semi-pro. So this might be like your top echelon, Division I AA schools. And then from there, you also have NISA, UPSL, NPSL, things like that. So it breaks down further, but there's no like distinct pyramid, which is weird in the American soccer. But that's that's the best way I describe it. Yeah. But for me, me being a Richmond Kicker fan was no brainer. Like, it's my home team squad. Like, growing up, I was a University of Georgia Bulldogs fan. I still am. I root for the Bulldogs here and there, but graduating from Virginia State University, man, I keep up with them just as much as I keep up with the Bulldogs. Like, I'm a season ticket member for Virginia State University basketball and football. I need to actually repay my dues with Alumni Association. But I'm also a season ticket holder for the Richmond Kickers. It's my home team. It's hard for me. I don't know what it is. It's hard for me to root for DC sports because growing up, DC was always bad in sports. So I just never really was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna root for DC United, something like that. Not saying they were bad with growing up. I just, it just never equated to me.
Now, speaking of this pyramid, do you think the pyramid could use more uniformity as well as a system of relegation and promotion, similar to other countries?
We're gonna have the pro rel talk. I do believe formality within U.S. soccer is something that needs to happen. I also believe that U.S. soccer needs to do a better job of kind of untangling that. Mm-hmm. Now, as far as promotion relegation, I think you're going to have to adapt it to the American market. And the only reason why I say that is you're dealing with a country that's 10 times the size of most European nations. And the soccer culture there is steeper than it is here. The money just simply, like my team, the Richmond Kickers, have self-relegated. We've chosen to go down leagues because financially we just couldn't compete at the top tier level because, it's a mom and pop shop. MLS is a little bit different. It's the franchise model. You're buying in like $300 million a pop. You're saying like, hey, I can financially, hold this team afloat. But it's a little bit different when you get further and further down the leagues because these teams are independently owned. There's no knock on MLS. I think it's just something to where if you're going to do pro rel, it's going to be something that has to be fleshed out and talked about. It might be something where you do like a financial promotion relegation where if the top team from a lower league gets promoted, but they don't have the financial means of going up to the next year, because you got to think about it. When we say like financial means, it means like travel, playing for player salaries, because
designated players,
right? It's funny. One of my boys, he's a stat nerd, and he showed me like the pay scale for our MLS team, and like a bench player on the MLS team cost as much, like just wages. You could take his wages and buy the entire Richmond Kickers team. Like, that's insane. You think about it. So you think about like a team like that, then having to go, get promoted up and having to pay for travel across country, things like that. It's just not financially, stable. Yeah.
Now, do you think that getting more celebrity endorsement, like LeBron and other NBA stars go to Europe, if maybe, let's say, some of the Washington Commanders or even maybe a Nationals player, bought stake into the Kickers and other teams? Hopefully that player will be of African descent, which would make it even better. Do you think those are some of the tactics that can use to help increase this USL pyramid?
I think about it in terms of like if you bring in a player like LeBron James, say LeBron's from Cleveland, and say if he brought a USL team, that USL team is going to get followed because it's LeBron name behind it. But in terms of the pyramid itself being fixated, that's something that's a top-down issue. Yeah, that's something to where U.S. soccer themselves has to be like, all right, we're gonna fluctuate the pyramid, we're gonna flesh it out, get it straight, get it top down. Because right now there's actually 3 Division 3 leagues which makes no sense. A USL League One needs a MLS Next Pro. And anyone that can tell you that, watch any of those three leagues, USL League One is probably the better quality of the league, with probably the higher pay scale. But U.S. Soccer themselves has kind of been on a laissez-faire approach about kind of cleaning up the pyramid. Now, as far as having other players of African descent join in and be part of the owning body, yeah, 100% would love to see it. Because actually, in soccer, American soccer, is the only league out of the top leagues here in America where there are minority owners. There's a minority owner down at Corpus Christi. DeMarcus Beasley owns a team up in Fort Wayne, Indiana. Charlie Davis has a team up in New England. I'm trying to think if there's one more. Dwayne DiRosario, he owns a team out of Toronto. So, I mean, there's a lot of black owners, and the ones you alluded to as well. There's a lot of black owners. So, yeah, there's ground for players.
Before that car accident, Charlie Davies was amazing. Oh
yeah. 100%, man. That car accident, man. I'm a firm believer.
He's going to start in the World Cup. I promise you he would.
Oh yeah, 100%. Like if Charlie Davies never got in that car, I 100% believe he would have gone to Europe because he would have done so well in that World Cup. 100% believe it. Yeah.
Now, getting back to MLS and the comparison or the dichotomy between the MLS and the USL, can you talk a little bit about the black fans in each MLS and USL?
Yeah, actually, man, it's a great mixing pot because a lot of us overlap with each other. Because a lot of us are so cool with each other. I know MLS fans from Chicago. I know MLS fans from DC, Atlanta, New York, LA. It really is no real difference. I mean, all of us all support our team in the same way, but we all kind of go through the same problems, same experiences. A lot of us are more than just average fans. We're supporter group leaders, podcasters, writers, and we all support our teams in different ways. So we talk to each other all the time about like, yo, like, are you doing this? Are you experiencing this? Like, you know, when bouts of racism pops his ugly head within American soccer, or, you know, someone talking crazy at this side of the night, we got each other's back and we're strategizing ways of how to negate that and be positive in the moment regardless, you know.
Fantastic. Now, can you tell our audience what exactly is Black soccer fan culture?
It's whatever you want it to be. That's the simplest way how to put it, man. Is whatever you want it to be. You know, if you want to beat on drums, if you want to make chants to hip hop music, if you want to come out there swagged out with the J's and Adidas and Pumas, it's you, man. One thing that we pride ourselves on in Black fan soccer culture, and you can ask any of us, we don't gatekeep. You know, we don't tell you how to dress, how do you support your team, how do you cheer for your team, nothing like that, because we all deal with it already. So what's the point of us trying to gatekeep you from enjoying the game? Now, what we will do is, you know, be a supportive partner for you. And also tell you, like, hey, if you're doing something that's an ism, like racism, colorism, something like that, then yeah, we're going to tell you, like, hey, that ain't cool here. But as long as it's positive in nature, man, enjoy yourself, man. Like, support your team how you want to be supported.
So let's tell the audience about pregame, march up, post game, some of the activities that happen in case, you know, they wanted to, viewers want to get into this culture, which is flat out amazing to me. Oh, yeah, man. I would say the best thing to do is to reach out to your local supporters group. You can find them on Twitter, Instagram. Say if you're looking for a local team, see if they have a supporters group. Ask them what they're doing. Like, what's the pregame routine? What's the postgame routine? Do they go to a bar? Do they hang out at the tailgate spot after the game? I can tell you here in Richmond, pregame, we in a tailgate spot right near the away team entrance. We there tailgating. We got a couple of tents out. Beers are flowing, things like that. We shut down usually 45 minutes before kickoff, and then we're marching into the stadium. Post game, we go to Gus's. We have beers there, you know, hanging out there, things of that nature. It's a little bit different than every other place you go to. I know DC
They tailgate normally around the area, but there's also local bars around. Richmond, there ain't no real local bars around, so that's where we tailgate like that. But people go to bars, things of that nature. Then they walk to the stadium. Prep post game, same thing. People are going back to those same bars, drinking, hanging out. So just ask. Don't be afraid to reach out to your local supporters group. And if they give you a hard time, let me know, and I'll straighten out for you.
All right. So can you tell everyone what got you behind the idea and how you started the Red Army?
So I didn't actually start the Red Army. I joined. I joined the Red Army in 2017, and it was just because I just read out. It looked real cool at the time, so I was like, "Oh shit, this looks fun." So I joined that, and it's been cool ever since, man. I've been on the board now and be able to do some amazing things like have a culture night where we were able to raise funds for. So I'm an alpha. We were able to raise funds for our education foundation. Nothing wrong with it, man. Nothing wrong with
I got you.
So funny thing, I'm gonna finish my point, but funny thing is we had a former player here named George Davies the Fourth. He plays at Louisville now. He just retired. My fault. Yeah, he just retired from Louisville, but he was a Q as well. One of the only Divide 9 Greeks that I know of that played soccer here in America. So that was
there's one at Purdue named Javen Simone.
Okay.
That was a while back. He played soccer. There was used to be a team in like the Fort Wayne, Indiana area.
Mm-hmm.
And he played with them or whatever. So that's the only one. And then I know it was a brother that played at Duke. He crossed in like 97. I forget his name though.
Okay. Yeah,
there was a few around.
Yeah, there's a couple around here somewhere.
So can you talk about like the life? Like, what is the life of a supporter group like? Like, is it conversation during the week, or is it like a fraternity where you have a bossilus and vice bossilus and things of that nature?
So every supporter group is different in nature. So the Red Army, we don't have necessarily like a president, vice president. We have a board, and on that board, everyone has a specific job. So like I'm in charge of communications and outreach. So I reach out to members. I'm making flyers, setting up watch parties. Someone's in control of the social. Someone's in control of the finances. Someone's in control of the tailgate. Someone's in control of march prep, things of that nature. But we're in communication throughout the week. Definitely with the season startups, so we're in communication a little bit more. Like, hey, we're doing this. We're thinking about doing that. And that's how we're building everything, and that's how we're kind of growing our supporters group. Once again, every supporter group is different. There's no right way or wrong way how to do it. Well, I take it back. There's a wrong way how to do it. You could be stealing money from the supporters group. You don't want to be doing that. But there's no right way how to do it. You set up in a way that best fits you and your organization. Say if you want to start new, best thing I would say is just get you and a couple of your friends, come out with it, which y'all want to be, have a reason why you want to support your group, and go about it that way.
Thank you so much. Now, can you? We talked about this again before the show. Just let our audience know about any barriers that Black supporters groups face. I know we talked about this in regards to racial connotation with the United States national team. A lot of their supporter groups have names like the Sons of Ben, Sam's Army, American Outlaws, and people that support these groups, they dress up in regalia that's before 1865.
Yeah.
So a lot of connotations are the 1700s, and we know in this country we were considered people back then. So a lot of the songs and themes, it borderlands patriotism, nationalism, but all of them invoke that time period. So could you tell us some of the barriers that Black supporters face?
Yeah, I can go on the whole list about you.
Okay.
Some of the barriers. Right. Some of the barriers are, like we talked about, gatekeeping, just feeling not wanted within that space. Not feeling anyone hears your voice if you have a concern. Sometimes we can feel as if our voice doesn't matter, or a concern is not being taken care about in the correct manner. So that can make you just feel dejected. Sometimes, as something I dealt with, my wife could tell you, dealing with that feeling of I'm the only Black person here, so am I looking like an oddball? speak a lot of things we don't feel is correct. And you're correct about the names. Even though I know dope people in America, outlaws, they're good people. We've had talks about the names and kind of, excuse me, kind of that white frat boy mentality that's around these sports.
Exactly.
Even though they do all this dope stuff, kind of like that first look at it, you're like, don't want to be around it. So I'm actually in support of a national team supporter group called Nate's Rebellion. It's a black supporters group for the U.S. men's national team.
And that term.
Nate's Rebellion. For those familiar with Nate's Rebellion, you 100% know what it's about.
Yeah.
But yeah, we started that just as an alternative voice for black supporters to join and be a part of, supporter group culture.
Thank you. And like I said, I need to join Nate's Rebellion as well, because that name is just symbolic not only to the culture, but what was going on at the time, and being able to invoke those references of the past proudly and educationally kind of rebukes any unwarranted, or where does that come from? And then you explain in an educational manner, either they say something stupid or have to walk away. So I'm very big on that. And I think more supporter groups should come. The Sisters of Harriet, I don't know, like just different things that, that could come up. Benjamin Banneker's boys, the gentleman that designed Washington, D.C. There's so many prominent figures that can be supporter groups to people of the African diaspora that had a part in building the United States of America, and can be invoked in the same breath as George Washington, Ben Franklin, and all these other guys.
Yeah, 100%, man. Like, coming up with the name for like our podcast, River City 93, we wanted something that represents the city of Richmond, but also represents the club. That's what we said. Like, Richmond is known for being the River City. Club was founded in 1993. Boom, simple. Having a black supporters group, man, is so special. It's special, man, because you're creating a safe space for black people within the sport, and people think that's ignorant. People think that's being exclusive because it's not focusing on them and their needs, but it's actually the most inclusive thing ever, because you're making an avenue for people that otherwise would feel excluded to be included, and that's an awesome thing, man.
So can you tell us, what does the Red Army do different than other supporter groups may do? Like, what are some special things that the Red Army of the Richmond Kickers FC does?
So one of the special things that the Red Army does, we're really passionate about our players. Like, we're really a player-oriented supporters group. So we're real cool with a lot of our players. When we talk to players, we get to know them. We help them out around the city. We got a couple of players still living in the city after they're retired. We do our best to hook them up with jobs, show them around the city, be there for them. Because a lot of these guys, this is their first ever professional stop. So we want to show them, like, hey, look, you might only be here for a year or two, but we want to show you everything about the city if you ever think about coming back. When you come to games, man, the atmosphere is amazing. It's electric. We're not a super duper big supporters group, but we make a lot of noise, and we're passionate for 90 minutes regardless. Making chants, making noises, things of that nature.
Now, I'm glad you invoked that chants and songs. So again, I'm a big fan of Crystal Palace in the Premier League. And by watching not only them, but other Premier League teams, I learned that a lot of our national songs come from English drinking songs.
Yeah.
So Star Spangled Banner, different songs that hold national relevance over here. You could turn on a soccer game early in the morning and hold on, that's a Yankee Doodle, but it's a drinking song. Can you tell us about some of the chants and songs you guys do, as well as the other chants of the national team, and how some of them can, they cross the line in regards to inclusion, like you said?
Yeah. So a lot of the chants we do, or when the Reds go marching in, it plays out the song, or when the Saints go marching in. We have another song called When I Die. It was a real passionate song of talking about how, like, when I pass away, bury me in Kickers Red. I love the team. I love the Stars. Bury me in Kickers Red. We do another one where, we just beat the drums for like 90 minutes. And just kind of everyone's in their own flow of that nature, things like that. when I first started off, I started off capping, but as the older I got and the less my voice was heard the next day.
That's draining to do that for a whole game.
Man,
the pregame
will wear you out. It will wear you out. Not even like you don't have to be the Premier League game. Being at a lower league game, because now it's less of you. See, when you're at like the bigger games, there's more of you. So you can kind of cut out your voice here. You can kind of just ride the wave. At lower league, there's like 40 of you. There's 50 of you. So everyone got to be protected. Everyone got to be loud. And it's more, man. It's more intense. But I love it, man. I love supporter culture. I think that's really like my driving force within soccer, because I think supporter culture at all aspects of America are the same, but they're unique in different ways. Like we might have all the same songs, but they all represent something different to each supporter, no matter what. Like you can hear 50 supporter groups sing the beat of or when the Saints go marching in, but to each 50 supporter groups, it means something different.
Definitely. Now I've heard so many different songs. I've heard songs to Afro Man, Get High. I've heard songs to Survivor, like so many different things. And then you have your classics, such as, Blue Moon, You'll Never Walk Alone, like club staples. Do you think those songs will kind of help like major league clubs and even in the United States national team get a more nationalistic, vibe? Because we have so much culture that's exported to other places, like, maybe, a rap song or like I said, in the Premier League, they take Oasis songs and make it their own. Like, do you think that will help our culture over here?
I think the biggest thing, man, it got to be organic. I think the worst thing is when something's forced and it doesn't feel like it's real. I'll use this example. Who does it? Spurs. They use the Phantom of the Menace entrance. And it feels organic because it's like they just started playing it after every game. For the Red Army, I can tell you, win, lose, or draw, when the team walks over to the players, we're chanting at them, we love you, we love you. Oh, how mighty we love you at them. And it feels organic. It's just something that we do every single game and every single moment, just to build united bond with. It has to be organic. You can play a song, but if it has no passion behind it, if the fans ain't catching on to it, it's not worth it. You don't want to do anything that doesn't serve a purpose.
Definitely. Can you talk to us? You briefly mentioned this earlier about your River City 93 podcast and what you talk about on there as well.
So River City 93 is a podcast that solely focuses on the Richmond Kickers. So think about this almost as like a fan version of like a sports beat writer. That's what I kind of started. I kind of started with my best friend, Shanier Duran II. Also shout out to him. He just had baby number 2. So he's happy. But we started a podcast because pretty much no one was talking about the Kickers here in Richmond. You couldn't find them in the local newspaper. You couldn't find them on the local TV station. So we were like, all right, well, no one's talking about them. How about we do it? So we kind of started from there, doing interviews, doing pre and post game analysis, things of that nature. But it's been amazing. We're going into year 4 now, man. And the players love it. The team love it. The supporters love it. They're very supportive of it. It's something I love to do, man. I love doing it just because of the fact of I get to cover my local team. I don't have a degree in journalism. I was never a journalist. I thought about it, in college, but I knew I wasn't going to make any money. Yeah. But I just was very passionate about it. And I believe so far I've made the right steps and the right moves. I'm not just doing things just for clicks or just overstepping my boundaries. You're
a sports information director of Richmond FC.
Yeah. So the Richmond Kickers, man, they've been very helpful every step of the way, just reaching out. We want to set up player interviews, things of that nature. We tell the players, first and foremost, when you come to the podcast, hey, we're not out to get you. because we take players' mental health very serious on our podcast, and we don't want to ever put them in a predicament that it seems like we're out to get them. Because we want to help them get that next move. Like if you get the next move to an MLS squad or to a European squad, that look good for us. So why am I gonna talk bad about you? Things like that.
Now, speaking of podcasts, let's move into your Can I Kick It podcast, which emphasizes the African diaspora in soccer.
So Can I Kick It FC is funny. We would have never had the idea if the pandemic never happened. Literally, me and Shanair was like, we started off with River City 93, and the season was supposed to start March, and then everything got shut down. So we were like, all right, well, we're gonna try to review old games and things like that, and nobody really cared. So we were like, well, all right, this is not working. So one day I went on a walk with my wife, and I was listening to a podcast called MLS Stories. 25 MLS stories. So it was 25 stories that told about the history of MLS. And it really captured my attention. I think this is why I got into podcasting, because I was so intrigued by stories. Like I didn't really know who the people were, but I was intrigued by the stories themselves, like ESPN 30 for 30s, things of that nature. And I was looking around because I wanted to know more about like certain Black players, but nobody was doing podcasts on them. Like nobody was talking about like, Thierry Henry in the Hand of God, or talking about, Samuel Eto'o and how he became president, or Didier Drogba, how he stopped the war, and things of that nature. People weren't really talking about it. When they talk about history in soccer, you kind of hear the same voices: Pele, Maradona, Zinedine Zidane, Ronaldinho, Ronaldo, Cristiano Ronaldo, Lionel Messi, things of that nature. So I was like, all right, well, I'm a history major. Let me just try my hand at it. So me and Shanair, we started recording that around the pandemic, and we actually did our first ever episode. We dropped our first 2 ever episodes. We did DeMarcus Beasley and we did Winnie Renard, and we dropped them on Juneteenth of that year, and it was amazing, man. DeMarcus Beasley and Winnie Renard both loved it. Like they shared it on their own personal social media. It is a real simple podcast, man. What we wanted to do was create a platform where if you want to know about a specific subject, you can click on that podcast, you can listen to it. None of our podcasts are they build on top of each other. So what that means is that you don't have to listen to episode 1 to know what episode 2 is talking about, to know what episode 10 is talking about. You can listen all over the place. So that evergreen podcast, they'll last for a lifetime. Because the story's not going to change. Now, they might update, but they're never going to change the past. So with that being said, in creating Can I Kick It FC, what we intended to do was wanted to tell the untold stories of Black soccer players, stuff that hasn't been covered as much, that might have got swept under the rug, bring it to you from a different perspective. So one of the things that me and Shanair did, and it was so great, what was one of the conversation we had? We got talking about the France national team and about how this team was a true representation of Africa. And what we meant by that is, like, if you pull this team apart, they represent so much of Africa. And like this was kind of like the pulling point for every Black person in the world, because we were like,
Yogi, not even that, but that's one of the subjects of my dissertation. But if you look at that team and the rules that France enacted, a lot of those players were born in Africa.
Yeah, 100% born in Africa.
You look at the Afro-Franco-linguistic countries on the West Coast and the rules that the French national team made, like if you train with us, you can't go play for Ivory Coast. Or
100%. Like people forget, Kylian Mbappe is Algeria and Cameroon. He can legitimately play for either one of those nations. Kareem Benzema, Paul Pogba,
all of them, the whole starters.
All of them, man. I think there's only 3 players that are legitimately French born and do not have any ties to Africa that are on that team.
Well, even those players that were French born, they're first generation French citizens.
Yeah, they're first generation French citizens.
And if you know how it is in France, unlike the United States, where people know what country they come from. So in France, they segregate themselves, like they call the projects the Lost World, and the big centers that they built. And they took the old French players. outside of the projects to build this. So even though they were born in France, they would segregate themselves with the West African population. One video that I used to highlight this was if you look at when they were dancing on the plane, I forget what white player it was. It was, man. What's the little short guy's name? Not
Griezmann?
Yeah, it was Antoine Griezmann. They had African music playing on the plane, and they were doing the African dances. So Antoine Griezmann got up, took the radio, was doing the African dances with them. But the backlash from after they won, and this is some of the stuff we'll talk about on your show next week. The French paper were calling out a black, brown, and white team. They used brown for Algeria, Northern Africa, black for Southern or Sub-Saharan Africa, and white for Griezmann and a few of the other people that made the team. So it was very African. They knew about it, and if you look at the follow-up after that World Cup, they didn't start as many black players, and they lost.
Yeah, it's so crazy. There's a very good Netflix movie on Nicholas Anelka that we broke down on our podcast that focuses on his life in
South Africa.
Yeah, one of the things that he talked about was when I win, I'm French. When I lose, I'm from Mali and I'm black. It's kind of like the same context what Mesut Ozil talked about and why he left Germany. He said, when I win, I'm German. When I lose, I'm an immigrant. And that's kind of like the same thing that he talked, very similar things. When I win, I'm a part of you. When I lose, I'm the problem.
And if you look at that French team, they went from boycotting the World Cup. They didn't actually boycott it, but the team left practices and refused not to play based off of squad selection and other things. Then the next cycle win it. That shows how a country can, bend or acquiesce to the demands of their players. We're here in the United States. We're still in the pay-for-play, suburban model where, Africans dominate the game of soccer globally, except in the United States.
Yeah, very much so, man. It's a weird process, because here in America, soccer is still growing. It's still in its very early stages. We're being real. Like, soccer is no more in this country. I'll give you 35 years old, truly, and I'm 31. So you're really talking 4 years before I was born of how old soccer is in this country, where everything got started. Because we didn't, we qualified for our first World Cup in 1950. We didn't qualify for another one to 1990. So that's a 40-year gap where no soccer. I mean, soccer is being played, but it's not being taken seriously. Until 1990, then you had 94 World Cup, and so on and so forth. So it's still in its early stages. So, and I understand why they didn't pay to play at first, because you got to build this up from the ground up. But I think we're getting further away from what play for play was originally intended for, and now it's kind of being used as an exclusive method where you have to pay this amount to make it to the next level. It shouldn't be that way. It's kind of if we want to look at the similarities or something, you can look at it towards like AAU basketball, where you want to play with the elites, you got to pay like a damn house mortgage.
Yeah.
But if you still want to be competitive, you can still go to your high school. You can still, play. It shouldn't be that way at high school. I shouldn't be only to play the best soccer if I pay like a house mortgage. I should be able to play good branded soccer for free, or
now,
with a local club.
Now, two things on that. The first one is every other country in the world, the best players come from the barrio or the hood. But here it's pay for play. And then secondly, when we talked about the history, one thing that I noticed is people really don't know the makeup of the players. Like, I would talk to people and I was like, the United States, their best players was black goalkeepers in the past. And they're like, Zach Steffen. I say Tim Howard. Tim Howard is black. People don't even know that. So that's amazing to me that, again, they just see a player, but a lot of people didn't know that till he retired. And you see his dad come out who's darker than me. And it's like, oh, well, now I realize this.
Yeah. That's the unique thing about it, man. people don't know those things, and that's unfortunate. But that's also on the leagues and themselves not telling those stories, because that's the thing that brings people in is telling those stories and latching people on and giving them a reason to root and care.
Definitely. Now, you speak of telling stories. I'm going to show this video, and then we're going to unpack it. This is one of the, again, favorite segments I want to talk about in this show. So everyone, please watch this video, and then me and Yogi will unpack it afterwards. This is Jamar Harp, and you're watching Sports 101.
The USL. We are in Richmond, Virginia, so we're going to be going to the Richmond Kickers match, meeting some players, and taking you guys through the historic city of Richmond, the Virginia state capital. The city is beautiful, oozes of history, and we are about to meet with Richmond Kickers player Devontae DuBois. He's going to show us around the city, tell us more about what his experience has been playing for the Kickers. Let's go.
What's good, bro? How you been, man? I'm chilling.
We're here.
Man. Hey, glad you made it, bro.
I'm glad I'm here, man.
I gotta show you Richmond, man.
It's beautiful.
Yeah. Moving from Oakland to Richmond, looking to prolong my career. Then COVID coming in to kind of put a halt to just the season. Tearing my ACL when we returned to play. At that moment, knowing that this was going to be a whole year off, the club, the organization, the community really embraced me. And I think that was the piece why I even know why I came here. So I'm like, yo, I gotta get back. I really think soccer for me, I was like, damn, I get to go back to Virginia, but I had no clue what the death of this was gonna mean.
Yeah.
When I came past Robert E. Lee Stadium, because when I first flew here, right, I'm like, yo, why is Robert E. Lee erect right here? This guy was in the Confederate leader of the Army. I'm like, he's huge here. What he represents here.
Yeah.
So, but people who live here are conditioned to not really see it.
Yeah.
But it's here for a reason. And now it's been quote unquote vandalized, but really it's turned into a community center.
Yeah.
I think it just helps me recognize where I come from and gives me more purpose about what impact I can make, man. I mean, shit, speaking of the legend Arthur Ashe, he is here because, man, this dude was the first black tennis player, let alone one of the most really profound tennis player behind Pistol Pete. But this dude was a baller. But in the era, obviously, where he's a man, black man, and then he winning. MJ of his time, and then dealing with the embracing who he is, which is wild, man.
Where are we at right now?
City Stadium. This is my stomping grounds where I get to suit up, go to battle with my brothers, man, and to do it in a historic part of Richmond. Been around since the 1920s. To see it now and to see where the direction it was going is just amazing, man. So our owner has been deeply invested into building this thing and continue to grow the roots here in Richmond as we see it. It means a lot more when I'm stepping on the field here, to be much more a part of the community, a part where the growth of soccer and continue that growth and history of the game.
So obviously, the fans are a huge part of the game.
Yes, sir.
How are the Richmond Kickers supporters out here?
Man, you can hear them, you can feel them, and they're called the Red Army.
Yeah.
So the Red Army shows up with the red smoke. They're making a noise. The homie Elliot, actually, he the one who actually Henny in hand. What does that mean? The Henny Derby, which is against Fort Madison. After you score, Elliot's in front.
Yeah.
Saying, get over here. It's always the loudest. Red Army goes crazy.
Yeah.
And that's the derby between us and Fort Madison. The Henny Derby, they call it.
Okay, so I am here
What's up, man?
with Elliot, a huge supporter of the Richmond Kickers, co-host of River City 93. How have you seen the black soccer experience transition since you started supporting the Kickers?
Atlanta won MLS Cup in 2017-18. So when Atlanta won it, it's really when you saw the black soccer media boom kind of grow and expand to what it is now. I started listening to other podcasts, but I wanted to hear it from our perspective. We can tell these stories in so many unique ways because who knows black people better than other black people? That's where I kind of really fell in love with soccer, is listening from this whole different perspective and understanding where it was coming from.
You have the black soccer media boom, as you call it.
Yeah.
You become a huge fan of the Kickers. And now it comes to this point where we got what we call now the Henny Derby. Take us through, how did this come about, and how did this become, such an iconic thing now?
I was working with the Kickers to do a Heritage Night, showcase the history of the city of Richmond, but also I really wanted to show that pride in Richmond. So I wanted to be a night where the black community can come into, because a lot of black community don't know who the kickers are. So I wanted to be a night where they could be exposed to it. You know, as you can tell, I'm an alpha. Wanted to have the black Greeks out there, bigger like an HBCU homecoming kind of vibe, you know? And then the second part was me and Kyle, who's a black Ford Madison fan, me and him one day was just like, it was before the first Cindy Derby, I was like, yo, you want to bet on this game? And he was like, yeah, sure, what you want to bet? And I was like, yo, let's bet a bottle of Hennessy.
What are your hopes for this culture overall in the future? You know, where do you see this going?
For me, I would love for this to be an insight into what black culture can be for soccer. Like, I would love to integrate and intermix like the HBCU homecoming vibes, which, and when people think about HBCU, they think about how it's turned up, how it's live, and that's great, that's fine, but when you break it all down and look at it, it's a family. You know, we're supporting each other. For the last year's Henny Derby, me and Kyle both worked together to raise money for black community organizations in our respective cities. So it's like that's what we want the Henny Derby to be this kind of platform for the black community in soccer. You know, be our own thing.
Giving a platform to black soccer fans, exposing black people to the game of soccer, and getting some Henny in the mix with it. That's perfect. From what I know, y'all get turned up.
Oh yeah.
So it's definitely gonna help.
Oh yeah. It's gonna be a vibe.
It's gonna be a vibe. We outside.
You got ID on you?
Yes, sir.
All right, you're good to go. Thank you.
Thank you. It's gonna be lit. Let's get to it, guys. Let's go.
How you doing, sir?
What's going on? This is the main event. I've been waiting for this for a minute because I'm just like, this is so odd.
You're gonna have fun.
Nah, I love it. I love it. This is the last home game.
Last home.
Okay. Playoff spot could possibly be secured today. So it's gonna be, okay, this is an important one for sure.
I came to the first one 2 years ago.
Yeah.
I'm from Massachusetts. They just told me it was happening, so I came down on like two days notice.
Yeah. See, he heard Henny. He was like, I'm there. I'm there. Yeah.
It's sad that it's the last game.
Yeah. But then again,
I'll definitely be back.
the vibe is gonna be crazy because it's the last game.
Yeah.
Let me see who has a big drum. Big drum. Oh. I'm gonna ask him. Would you mind if I like have a go with like the drums and stuff like that too?
No, get in there.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
This is our big one. It's
Okay.
60 feet.
Jesus.
And we're underway at City Stadium. It's the Richmond Kickers in Fort Madison. One last time in the regular season.
Come on, I'm here. I'm right here with you. I'm right here. Come on. I'm about to get it. I got my own flag. Orange the red. Come on, Jenny. Orange the red. Come on, Jenny. I give you a hug. They ain't give you a hug. Come on. How you gonna give him a hug before me? Come on. Come on. There you go. There you go. I got you. See that? It's love.
Bulldog put in a good ball here. Alexanderson, Terzaghi! That's the record breaker, and it couldn't have come at a better time. The Argentine takes the lead for Richmond. The final whistle is blown. Roaring applause at City Stadium. A Henny Derby classic tonight.
Now we'd like to award the Charlie Slagle Memorial
Supporters Award, Elliot Berg, and one of the most important supporters Red Army has ever had. We're the playoffs!
Quarter of the year, bro. Come on. They're in the Henny Derby. Come on.
When I started River City 93,
yeah,
we went 7 straight games without scoring a goal.
Wow.
And I recorded after every game. Them boys put everything out there for us. What can you not do as a sport?
Yeah.
You gotta love it. It's probably the essence of black soccer culture at its finest.
Yeah.
Won't no animosity, won't nobody fighting in the stands.
Yeah.
What happened after the game? The players loved each other. The players,
yes, sir.
Opposite players was loving us.
Yeah.
We was loving them.
Yeah.
It's like a cookout. It's an HBCU homecoming
Yeah.
mixed with a cookout.
Elliot, champion, supporter of the year, right there, man. Henny Derby, Richmond. We out here, man. We out here. The Kickers, legendary. That's a wrap.
All right, so again, we just saw that excellent video. Can you tell our fans and viewing audience what a derby is and kind of break down more of this Hennessy derby?
Oh man, so derby is pretty much just a rivalry between two teams that are fierce between each other. So like the Merseyside derby or the Hudson River derby here in America. The reason why the Henry derby is so important is because it's the first ever black supporter group derby anywhere you can find it. For Featherstone Flamingos, my good friend Kyle Carr, he runs that. River City Red Army Black Supporters Group. It's not black, but I was the black leader. I was the leader at the time. So we started it together, going against each other, man. And you know, it's just been an amazing journey. This is actually year 4 of the thing. It's been amazing, man. It's been awesome. It's been a pleasure to start something that has brought so much joy and happiness to so many other supporters. It's been awesome.
And we just saw a picture of the trophy right there.
Mm-hmm.
Now, did your wife help you design the trophy, or whose wife helped him design that trophy?
My wife's friend actually helped us design the trophy. I got the Henny bottle from my best friend Jordan. He's a Henny connoisseur. So I got the bottle from him, and I gave it to my wife, and she decorated it, man.
Great. Now, do you see how did the players and everyone else, how did they react to the Henny Derby and the trophy?
Oh, they love it, man. The players want to go out there and win it because, you know, not every year you're winning the championship. So in soccer is a little bit different than any other sport here because you get to play for these little rivalry trophies and things like that. Kind of like college football. And these trophies means a lot. They
Like
know
a
how
classic.
much it means.
Yeah.
Yeah, they know how much it means to us supporters. You know, we get one up on our rivals. One of the famous quotes here from a Kickers player is, if we lose every game but beat Fort Madison, it's a hell of a season. And that's how it is, man. It's, you know, one thing I was saying in the video, there's no bad blood, there's no animosity, but you want to beat them. That's the team you want to knock them off the perch. And, you know, I love it.
Fantastic. Now, getting back to the game on a more global level, let's talk about the impact of France's World Cup victory to the African diaspora and the representation of black soccer.
Oh, yeah, man. So we actually did an episode on them. It's a 2-part episode. You can find this in our podcast feed on Can I Kick It FC, where we talked about this French national team and how diverse it was. The first part of the episode. Second part, we went through every group stage game and every game, broke it down, talked about some of the key moments, how important this team was to the culture and things of that nature, because it was one of the more important moments of black soccer history that anyone can remember, because it was the first, I wouldn't say it was the first recognized like big World Cup in the black community, but it kind of was, because the star player on the team, Kylian Mbappe, was a young black kid and punk pub and things of that nature. So it was kind of cool to see.
Great. Now, moving on to that, now let's talk about the African presence in the Premier League. If anyone follows the Premier League, you know when the African Cup of Nations starts, the Premier League doesn't like that. Some teams don't want to send all their players, and it actually shuts down, and it's a lower level of competition. So let's just give our fans what are your perceptions on the African Cup of Nations and its players' presence in the Premier League?
Oh, I love the African Cup of Nations, man. I 100% love it. I think it's one of the best international competitions out there. Obviously biased, I'm gonna say CONCACAF because I'm Jamaican as well as part of America, so I'm rooting for both teams and cheering against other teams. Europe is cool. Asian Championship is cool. But CONCACAF, CAF, I'm getting all the names confused. It's alphabet soup. It's amazing, man. Like even look at World Cup qualifying. Like they only get 4 teams in, but some of the matchups are insane. Like you're talking about big names knocking each other out. Like tomorrow we got Ghana versus Nigeria. You got Egypt versus Senegal. Like these are
U.S. Mexico tomorrow.
Right. Just in Africa alone, you talk about big name teams playing each other and they're knocking each other out of the World Cup. Like that's insane. Like Mane and Senegal
might not make it. That's crazy.
Right. And they just won African Cup of Nations. Mane possibly has to knock out his teammate Salah. That's insane. Like
when
that's
all the
crazy.
European countries get entry,
where are a lot of CONMEBOL, a lot of 5 teams get in from there. Look at CONCACAF here in America, 4.5. Between Africa and I probably say Oceanic, which they don't even get a qualifying space, they have to go to the playoffs to qualify to get in. That's probably the 2 toughest routes, man, when it comes to World Cup qualifying. So when them teams come through it, man, they'd have been through the fire.
Correct. Now I'd like to talk about Mario Balotelli. Mario Balotelli is one of the players that I researched a long time ago, and he has made quotes about noticing the trend of all the African players in Europe. He has some bitterness towards Italy. I wish he would have played for Ghana. If he was playing for Ghana when they play the U.S., they go to the finals of the World Cup. I guarantee it.
100%.
But,
no one was stopping Mario in that time period.
Exactly. So he's made some quotes on representation, similar to what Deion Sanders is doing now in regards to the Renaissance and the top black athletes going to HBCUs because before the 1970s, that's the only place they could go. And now he's getting the top ones to come back. Mario Balotelli wants to do the same thing with European soccer and start an African Super League due to all the African players dominating Europe. Can you give me your thoughts on that?
Man, my thoughts on it, man. I love how Mario has changed the perspective and the story on him because it started off as something that was very negative at first. And that was just, self-inflicted, but also things of that nature. We actually did an episode on him and talked about, he just needed a father figure, someone just to love him. He had that in Roberto Martello, his manager at Man City. I probably pronounced his name wrong, but
Roberto Mancini.
Mancini. I don't know why I said it the way I did. But he was a great father figure, and he's actually just brought him back into the Italian national team. So I think that's the key thing that Mario needed. I think now he's mature, he's better. I would love to see him come to MLS, actually. I think he'll be perfect over here. But as far as having black players and kind of doing that, I understand what he's saying. I think it's kind of like the same thing here in America when it comes to pro route. I think the organization structure of it needs to be fixed because there's a lot of predatorial and also corruption going on over there. And that's, not trying to knock them or anything, but it just needs to be cleaned up. If we want to give players these platforms and tell them, hey, come play in this league where you might not get paid on time or things like that, or,
a mob boss may get mad and fire you.
Right. I think those kind of things have to be cleaned up first before we just say, hey, put all the black players here. because you got to realize, they're like regular people. Like job security is a great thing to have. So I think that's one of the key things, man.
Definitely. Now, speaking of World Cup qualifying, I'd like to talk about black representation on the U.S. national team. Now, it is increasing from the Charlie Davies, Kobe. What's his name? He used to play for LA Galaxy.
Kobe Jones.
Yeah, no, not Kobe Jones. The short lights going with he had the locks.
Jais Zardes.
No, not Jazzy Zardes. I think it was Kobe Jones. But we're starting to get more representation on the U.S. national team.
Mm-hmm.
You see Tim Weah. Now, his dad was the African Footballer of the Year. And, he could be playing for Liberia. You got Eunice Musa, Weston McKinney, Serginho Dest. The other right back is going to start. What are your thoughts on the black representation on the United States national team?
Man, I think it's amazing, yo. I love it. I'm absolutely here for it, man. I'm so excited for these young guys to come through and show their talent and skill, from Weston McKinney to Serginho Dest to, it gives kids the ability to see, like, hey, you can make it to this level, regardless of your skin color, And I want them to succeed and do great. I want them to go on and do great things, I'm not one of these U.S. soccer fans that's like only the result matters, and if you don't win, I don't care about you. If you lose, you're trash to me.
Yeah.
Nah, like I want to see them succeed and do great and be amazing at what they do. So yeah, I love it. I root for them, regardless, man. There's no like, oh, you have to, be this kind of player, but nah.
So speaking of that, tomorrow, USA versus Mexico. Predictions and score. I got USA by 2 goals.
I will feel a lot more confident if Weston McKinney and Serginho Dest and Brandon Aronson were not out of this team. I was listening to a show today, one of my friends hosted. They were talking about what we need to win. So this is how it breaks down. Mexico, you go into Mexico, you win. You need 1 point from the other 2 games. That looks good. A draw, you need a win from one of the other 2 games. Really, 4 points gets you in. Anything less than that, it looks a little bit dicey. USA can fall to the 4 spot where they will play in the international playoff against the Oceanic team, more likely New Zealand. So it gets dicey. And there is a scenario where we fall to 5th and we don't make it. That would be absolute disaster.
Speaking of this selection, how do you start a center back in Germany and not get picked for the team?
So this is a lot of things that I've had to explain to a lot of my friends. You have to realize, one, form and formation fits to a lot of these things. So you can be starting in Germany, but if you're playing badly for your club team, you're not getting a lot of minutes. Why should I call you into the national team? It's kind of like when you're playing for your high school football team. Yeah, you're a big name player, but you're at odds with the head coach. You're not playing well. You're not having the same stats that you were the year before. Why would I call you up into the all-star team? The formation is a little bit different. There's other players that deserve and show that they deserve to be there. Now, do I think John Brooks is a great center back? Yes, 100%. But none of us as fans know what goes on behind the scenes, the conversations that are being said. Is he a good locker room fit? He might be one of those players, and not saying that he is, but he might be one of those players that's like, if I'm not starting, I don't want to be there, and that's something that we got to take in mind and kind of keep informed about it. I'm always in favor of, I'd rather take guys that want to be there and want to fit within the role that I have than just pigeon-footing guys into a role just because of their name, because that's never going to lead to the right results.
So now moving forward, we talked about the spread of black soccer culture in the United States and through the United States pyramid, how warped it may be. What are some ideas on how this culture can spread I know I try to speak to people about it all the time and really let them know, again, that the African origins of soccer in regards to style of play, what I kind of alluded to a little bit in the show and in some of the papers that I sent you. What I did is that you have on the spread, it is Black soccer culture, which, again, if you look at the Black culture when it went into all the other sports, it changed them. Hockey was invented by former enslaved Africans in Nova Scotia, as well as the butterfly goaltending, as well as the slap shot. When we look at basketball, even though it was originally played by Jewish immigrants and then went to Mr. Naismith, Dr. Leroy T. Walker of North Carolina Central University, and his fast break style of play, and John McClendon, brought that in the example. When we look at football, the American Football League and the forward pass, and its Black players from historically Black college and university changed that game. So we saw this culture change every sport in America. How do you see the Black soccer culture changing and providing a new paradigm for us to look at soccer in this country?
So I will 100% say that I think the best way how to spread Black soccer culture in America is that teams within these areas have to do a better job of meeting people where they're at and not expecting people just to come just because, oh, we're here. That's arrogance. You can't do that. Especially to a group of people that might not have access to the sport or know anything about the sport or feel included within the sport. I think it's very important that you have to open the doors for them, go into their communities, not like beg and plead, like, oh, hey, love us, like us. No, but like do events in their community, show them that you care, show them that you're interested, and it will grow. As I tell teams all the time, I'd rather you give 100% than you bullshit 50. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cuss.
No, you're fine. You're fine.
I didn't, or just BS and not give it all and be like, oh, well, we tried, but you really didn't try. Or just putting up like a Black Lives Matter post and not doing any actions behind it, because those kind of things matter. And then also, I think it's just like as Black fans, it's also about us. Like we could just invite our friends and be like, hey, I'm going to a soccer game. If you want to come, I got an extra ticket. That's what I do. I tell my friends all the time, like, yo, I got an extra ticket. Anybody want to come? Let me know. I'll DM you the ticket. I wear my kicker stuff to the barbershop. I got a kicker's hat that I will rock, wear, things like that. So I think it's just all of those kinds of things.
Definitely. Now, one thing I like to add is I think it's number one, the management, and then style of play and who they select. We've already established that the rest of the world, they recruit Africa at the earliest ages for players, and particularly these professional leagues. However, MLS, I was talking with a Charlotte FC supporter, and I told him, I said, well, if you look at the Premier League, they'll go to Africa and get a 12 or 13-year-old and try to bring him up through the academy system. There's a lady in Ghana that does a program that's called Boots for Africa, where she gets Premier League teams to give, boots to young kids. What eventually turns out, hey, West Ham gave you some cleats, so, let's go to their academy. But if you look at the MLS, you see the MLS getting players from South America and Europe. So I think that is going to deter that Black culture, because if you look at all the other sports, when the culture increased, the participation on the field increased, or hand in hand.
So I think it's all about, when it comes to that, I think it's a little bit different. Of course, MLS is buying players from from South America and Europe, because that market's there. Those are the high profile players. Africa is a little bit different, because Africa is, once these young players come in, they're selling them all. They're shipping them off to France and Italy and other countries. But in Africa, they know that, okay, this guy, he might be worth $2 million. I can get 4 out of Europe, where in MLS, I can probably get 1 or 2. He can go there, that's fine. But I think they're going to try to push him to Europe, because that's where the conveyor belt has already been. But there's also predatory tactics behind that MLS is like, all right, we're not going to exploit that. Now, there are an influx of African players here, like Harrison Offals and Charlotte FC, Darlington Nagby. There's an influx of African players. I think the thing that plays into MLS and U.S. soccer's favor is that we're such a diverse mixing pot here that they don't have to go to places like they don't have to go to Africa. I'm not trying to say like they're a higher game,
Yeah.
but it's just like in Columbus, there's a huge Ghanaian population. In New York, there's a huge Somalian population, things like that. So they don't have to be like, oh, well, we have to go to Africa and build a pipeline. They can obviously do it, but it's kind of like where in Africa, you're just escaping to get to a more stable situation. Same thing in South America. A lot of those guys in the Argentinian league, top league, that play for Boca, River, they're leaving because they want to come to America and play in a stable organization. Like, once again, job security is a real thing.
Exactly.
You want to make sure that check clears on the 1st and the 15th of every month and not skip every 3 months,
So again, Sports Zone Chicago on Sports 101. This episode was featuring Brother Elliot Yogi Barr, supporter of the Richmond USL team and his Red Army supporters group. You saw in the video he got Fan of the Year.
Yeah.
Basically we enjoyed our time talking soccer today. So Mr. Barr, any final thoughts?
Man, just to anyone out there, if you need any help in understanding what it's like to be a Black supporter, you're looking at how to start or want to see what the community is like, don't be afraid. You can hit me up on Twitter, Yogi McLovin. I'm down to talk to anybody. Yeah, just don't gatekeep. Do it for why you want to do it and have fun with it, man, and bring people along the journey.
All right, thank you so much. If you could just stay backstage for 1 second.
Yeah, of course.
All right, so everyone, this was this week's episode of Sports 101. Thank you for tuning in with me. I'm your host, Jamar Harp. Be sure to follow me on Twitter at Coach_Harp412 and Facebook under Jamar Harp. Please get social with Sports 101 and a litany of other shows on SportsZone Chicago by following SportsZone Chicago on social media. SportsZone Chicago can be found on Twitter at SportsZone CHI, Facebook at SportsZone Chicago, and Instagram under SportsZone Chicago. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, search SportsZone Chicago, but more importantly, download the SportsZone Chicago app. The SportsZone Chicago app can be found in the iTunes, Google Play, and Amazon stores. Thank you for tuning in to another week's episode of Sports 101. We'll see you next week at our normally scheduled time, Wednesday, 8 p.m. Central, 9 p.m. Eastern. And I'm gone.